Everybody wants to know what I would do if I didn't win. I guess we'll never know.
Imagine making a difference. No, imagine being the difference. The difference between I can't and I can, or I won't and I will. The reason someone chooses to wake up and strive for greatness. In life, it can feel like everything is working against you. Let's defy all odds and break generational curses. This is Overstepping Poverty with Daquan and Zacchaeus. Welcome back to Overstepping Poverty, the podcast that provides you with tips, tricks, and hacks in overstepping poverty. My name is Daquan Brooks, and I'm here with my co-host Zacchaeus Shaw. How you doing, Zacchaeus?
I'm doing good today, my friend.
My friend.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you today. Earlier, Daquan was a great friend and helped me pick up some equipment from the repair store.
I did. The invoice will be coming in the mail.
Yeah, it pays to have friends with trucks, I'll tell you what. But no, I'm doing good, man. My son is growing a lot. He's doing really well. He's still in the NICU, but he's progressing every day. And, you know, when this airs, it won't be a week before Thanksgiving, obviously. But I'm excited for the holidays and just to be around family and kind of take a break a little bit, you know, and get a little reset. I know we all need it, but yeah, how have you been?
I've been great, man. I've been great. Again, congratulations to you. You've announced your baby's name, correct?
Yeah, yep.
You have? Okay, perfect. So Xavier looks exactly like Zaire. Like, it's crazy. Like these,
got their mama's genes.
Seriously.
I swear.
I know a little birdie told me that for them to have more of your male qualities and whatnot and attributes, you need to stress them out while they're pregnant, right? Yeah.
I think that's what I was told.
I'm just
That's just what I heard.
Right. I said a little birdie. I don't know. I'm not gonna take the advice or anything like that. It's been great, man. It's beautiful. We usually don't see this kind of weather in Sioux Falls, especially this late into the year.
Man,
it's crazy.
I'm loving it.
It's crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yes. All right, let's get into this.
So we got another special guest today. Somebody I really recently met within the last few months, but super glad that we got to meet and have been kind of collaborating ever since. Coming from the South, grew up in Tennessee. She's the assistant director at Augustana University for the diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have the great Tyra Hawkins on the podcast.
Welcome. Let's go.
Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I gotta ask you, just to get it started, coming from the South, like, how did you, like, why South Dakota?
If only I knew. Like, every time somebody asks me that, I always say God, because, like, I don't know. Like, so at the time that my current supervisor, Willette, reached out to me about working at Augustana, I was in grad school, and I was looking for opportunities to work. I had applied to, like, 14 different positions. Probably more than that. I think I actually only interviewed for 14 positions, but I applied for way more. And it just so happened she reached out at a time to where I was kind of like, whatever comes my way, I'll at least, kind of take that opportunity. And so I interviewed with her, interviewed again with another group of people at Augie, and then they brought me down the third time to visit South Dakota and kind of see what everything was like. Yeah. And it wasn't bad. And it kind of got to the point to where I was down to like 2 positions out of the 14 that I interviewed for. Yeah. And Augie reached out to me first. And so that's kind of how I got here.
Did she have you come like in the summer?
No, it's so funny. So funny thing. I came in April, but I came, the day that I came, they said it was the first time the sun had came out in like weeks. Oh, man. I think y'all had just had like a tornado or something. I don't know what happened,
probably.
But the weather was good when I was here. And so, yes, I definitely felt bamboozled when I came back to live here.
Right. Jeez. That is crazy. Because how long have you been here in South Dakota then?
So it's been a little over a year. I moved to South Dakota in June of 2022.
Okay. So, so you got to experience the
worst,
winter.
Yes, the worst winter in history, they said.
Oh my God.
It was bad.
No, I'm still shook. Yeah. I'm scared of this winter because of last winter.
But I don't know, because the sun is still out. I'm kind of thinking that this winter might be a little.
Yeah, Mike.
And there's always, I mean, like I said, like in everything, you always have to have that vision. Like, speak this stuff into existence, you guys.
I ain't speaking
like
that
there's
into existence.
Right. I haven't been saying the S word for a long time, you know, just because I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I don't want any of that stuff. Yeah, you know. But yes, no, that's great. I'm glad that you came to Sioux Falls and you're acquainted with South Dakota here. I do kind of want to jump in, you know, on more of your background, because coming from Tennessee, that's a whole different playing field there, you know. So I just want to know exactly how you grew up, you know, what kind of inspires you, you know, what brought you to here, to this, you know, lead us up to that.
So I was born in South Carolina, actually. My mom and dad were both in the military. So we kind of moved around a little bit. When my parents separated, though, my mom, my younger sister, and I all moved to Memphis, Tennessee to stay with a family friend.
How old were you, if you don't mind me?
I was like 8 at that point, yeah. Okay. And then a couple years after that, we moved to Jackson, Tennessee, which is where my mom was born and raised and where all of my family is from her side. And we pretty much stayed there up until the point that I went to college. And during that time, we were in church a lot. From what I understand, my great grandma was deep in the church, and so she raised my grandma to be deep in the church, and my grandma raised my mom to be deep in the church, and so we grew up kind of the same way. Yeah. Up until the point that like we were almost at church every single day, on the usher board, in the choir, helping out with events and things like that. And I think just that helper spirit kind of like came over me, to the sense that like I grew up always wanting to like help people too. In school, I was involved in pretty much everything. I was in color guard. I was on prom decorating committee. I was senior class president. Like pretty much anything that I could do to help other people or to kind of just be involved, I pretty much did. Yeah. I think another thing that kind of helped with that was being involved in a program called 4-H. I don't know if y'all are familiar. No. They're kind of all over the country, but it's based in agriculture, but you do different projects, and you present these projects at an annual summer event. But they teach you all kinds of life skills like interviewing and how to speak in public, and you get awards for doing these things, baking, sewing, all kinds of stuff. Right. But I think that opportunity not only allowed me to kind of like figure out who I am and kind of give me like different life skills, but I think also just the ability to travel. We did get to... every spring break, we would go to Gatlinburg, which is, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Gatlinburg, but in Tennessee is like the Rocky Mountains. It's like you go there and you can rent a cabin and hang out. But we got to go every summer for free, just as long as we worked at the county fair, where they would serve chickens every chicken plates is what they would serve. They had their own little area. So with that, we were able to go to Gatlinburg. I was able to go to Washington, D.C., and just all kinds of things that I probably wouldn't have been able to do otherwise, just because our family, I wouldn't say that we were in poverty, but we weren't always the best off. And so it did provide us opportunities that we probably wouldn't have had otherwise. I went to college. I went to the University of Tennessee at Martin. Okay. And I started out as a nursing major, did not graduate a nursing major. Right, there you go. But I would say that college is what kind of showed me who I am, or kind of made me who I am even more. I remember a lot of times feeling, I don't know, like something was missing. So the college I went to was in a very rural area. Walmart was like the only store that stayed open 24 hours. Walmart and McDonald's were the only two stores that stayed open 24 hours. Everything else closed at 9. The nearest mall was like 45 minutes away in either direction. So it was just a very rural place. And although there were a lot of Black students there weren't as many. It was a predominantly white institution. So a lot of times I was in spaces with mostly white people, and even in some of the leadership opportunities that I did, I don't know, it always felt like something was missing for me. And I think around that time too, Trayvon Martin became a thing, and like all of the police shootings and stuff were happening, and you were able to see it like on your phones, and it was a lot. And I think throughout all of that, I began to kind of want to know a little bit more about who I was as a person outside of my religion and outside of things I had been taught growing up, and kind of figure out like, what does it mean to be Black, especially in a place where there's not many people like me. Right. And I ended up joining the Black Student Association. I was able, thanks to the president at that time, to kind of have my own section in that organization. We called it like the Black Lives Matter Committee or something. And we had, the first thing that we did was actually a talk. It wasn't a podcast, but it was a panel discussion. I invited Black students and some of the campus safety officers at the university to come and speak, and the room was packed out. Like, people were like, I think people were just dying to like have like that conversation because prior to that, it was like we were in a bubble. Like, things were happening, we could see that they were happening, but nobody was talking about it. Right. And so it was just great. And I think from there, I just kind of got the momentum to like just continue to do things that I felt like students needed. I like saw that I had a platform, and so I would like set up meetings with the chancellor and be like, all right, the students are saying this, like we need this, we need that. And he was very receptive. I'm thankful to him for that. Awesome. And I worked with some other members in the Black Student Association to kind of help make change on our campus. And I think when I decided to go to college for grad school, I think that's kind of what made me want to get involved. I got my master's in higher education administration because of all the success that I had as a student leader in undergrad. Yeah. So yeah, now I'm doing diversity work. Yeah, absolutely. Basically, which is where I found my passion in college. Yeah.
That's really cool. I want to go back a little bit to, because we'll get to a lot of those topics. I want to get back to as you're growing up. You know, you mentioned. You know, you weren't in poverty by any means, but your family didn't have buku bucks or whatever it was. Can you think, well, at that time, was your mother a single mother during that? At your base, a lot of your youth, she was. So can you think back to some of those times where maybe you're a teenager and you guys are going through those times? How do you feel like you got through a lot of those tough times? Was it going to the church and prayer, or was it the organizations that you were so active in? Can you kind of touch on those things?
I think it was that, but I think also my mom, she wasn't the type of person, and still isn't the type of person that is like a woe is me type of person. And so a lot of times I don't even think I realized how bad off we were because my mom never showed that. Like, when I tell you making a way out of no way, that woman like is so resourceful to the point that like I'll never forget, for instance. So when we were younger, we went to the YMCA and they had like summer camps and things like that. There was one summer where it had gotten so expensive for her to pay for me to go that she asked the director at the time if I could volunteer as like a teen counselor so that I could still go to the summer camp. Wow. And they let me do it. And so they also allowed me to still kind of participate in like, because there was a teenage group. When they would go on like their trips and things like that, they would still allow me to go along with them if I was free. But like, that's just one example of like how she was resourceful and kind of like didn't let what we were going through, what she was going through, affect us still being successful and having like opportunities. So
yeah, that's really cool.
I think that was the biggest thing for me. And I think it just kind of shapes how I do things too.
Yeah, for sure. Probably without you even knowing.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
I want to ask, I mean, obviously from the time that you're actually going through it and to now, you've learned a lot, you know, in between then. I mean, as you look back now and you really visualize how strong your mom was, what are some of the things that you've taken from her that you feel help you move forward in life today?
I think I say all the time, definitely being resourceful, just in the sense of like, I may not always have the most money. I may not always, you know, have all of the nicest things, but I have connections. I know people. And a lot of times just being in the right place at the right time or just knowing a certain person has like elevated me in ways that I wouldn't have even known. I think about, for instance, earlier I was just sharing with you about a project we're doing, the We the Change project that we're doing with our Journey Scholars right now. And then you were telling me about an opportunity that y'all are doing, and just right there, like we've made that connection. But I think just in general, knowing people, I think also there have been times where like when I was in undergrad, for instance, I worked as a resident assistant in the residence halls. And when I graduated undergrad, I was like, I don't know where the heck I'm going to live. I don't know what I'm going to do. But because I had that experience, that in itself kind of provided me a place to stay. When I did go into grad school, I was able to be a graduate assistant. And so I worked, not only did I live in the residence hall on campus, but I worked there and they gave me free cable, free food, free rent. Like, I didn't have to do any of those things. Again, I didn't have the money, but I was able to do that because I had that skill set.
Absolutely.
So those are the things that I think of, I guess, in regards to my mom.
Absolutely. And the reason I asked on that is because I grew up, as most of our viewers know, I grew up in a Black family. Then I grew up in an all-white family and whatnot. And I noticed, just as far as living with a single mother, and I know that she took on so much. She had multiple kids that weren't even hers. It was her kids' kids, and she was taking on that role as a parent figure. But I felt like at sometimes I felt like I was like left out. And as a kid, I resented that. But then as I grew up to where I'm at now and I look back, I'm like, dang, I mean, she was doing all that she could. I mean, in all her might, she faked it until she could make it. She made sure that things that were possible for us were possible for us. But, and there was so much time that I had so much like anger in between where I was just like, I was just nothing. I just felt like I was just there, and so much attention was given to other people when I felt like I wanted the attention. But then now as I continue to grow up, I figure out that I've learned so many things like and values and morals and really how to operate on a day-to-day basis just from living in that experience, So it's huge.
For sure. I tell my mom all the time, I don't see how she did it. And it's so funny because I think becoming an adult yourself helps you to humanize your parents.
Seriously.
For sure. Yeah.
I remember like my first couple weeks working at Augie, I was so tired. I didn't want to eat. All I wanted to do was lay down. And I was like, I don't know how you came home and cooked dinner, helped us with our homework, ran us all over the city for all our extracurriculars. Like, I don't get it. I think at the time, like, I don't know, as a kid, we think adults have all the answers. So, of course, we give them a hard time when they mess up. But like I said, when you become an adult, it's a whole different.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. Now you're the one that's supposed to be making it happen. And it's, but I think it's awesome, though, those qualities that you guys both receive from your upbringings. And a lot of people, the struggle is what makes a lot of people, right? Absolutely. And that's what pushes a lot of people to never want their kids to experience what they went through and all those types of things. But some people, being resourceful, some people just won't accept no. Like, I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to get to where I need to be, whether that's picking up another job and working that another job until I can do what I want to do, or kind of humbling yourself and putting yourself in a position where you can grow. And yeah, I think that's really important. I think that's a good thing for a lot of people to take away.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to lead into more of, you mentioned Trayvon Martin, and everything that we were seeing, it feels like for years and years, it got to a point where it didn't even seem out of the ordinary, which is messed up, right? And it really desensitizes us to what actually is happening. Right. When you think about that, you're in college, those things are going on. You mentioned being kind of in a bubble. What were those conversations like, if you can remember, when you were able to get into a room with so many people? And can you tell us about how that was?
I can barely remember what I did yesterday, let alone that long back. But I feel like at the time, we really just talked from like all the varying perspectives. I think we talked as Black people ourselves. I also wanted the campus safety officers to speak from their perspectives. One of the officers was Black, the other person was Hispanic. So one was speaking from the perspective of being Black and being a police officer, and the other was speaking just from being a police officer. And so it was great just to hear everybody's different viewpoints at that time, especially because it was such a fresh thing. I think emotions were high. But yeah, just having the conversation was important because, like I said, like being in a space where like you're seeing this happening, but nobody's talking about it, almost feels like, is it really happening? Like, it's like, it was such a weird feeling at the time. But I think what actually pushed me to want to do something was Philando Castile and Alton Sterling. Like, that was like the last straw for me. I think Trayvon Martin was when I started thinking like, okay, we need to do something, like this is not good. And then after those two, I was like, okay, I've had it. Like, I don't care what's going on. I don't care like what organization I'm a part of. I thought about actually starting my own organization, but then the president of BSA at the time, she was like, okay, hold on now. Like, you can come over here with us. And then that's kind of how it started. But yeah, I I was tired at that point.
Right. Ready to fight.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Absolutely.
No, the reason I bring that up is because it was the same for us when, of course, when those things were going on, but, I felt like it was really heightened during the George Floyd killing. Mm-hmm. And that was where I think this kind of spawned from this podcast, really a part of it, at least, of us in a group chat arguing amongst our own friends and each other, because we're all mad and we all have our own perspectives on things, but at the end of the day we all wanted the same thing. And I think those conversations are important because, like you were saying, a lot of people don't have those tough conversations because they're tough, and then it just kind of, a few days go by and then you're back to your normal life. And those names, they'll be remembered for a long time, because I think that those things help, unfortunately, but fortunately, spark a change amongst a generation of people and generations as they combined and march together. But yeah, I'm glad that we haven't had to hear about a lot of that's going on, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening still,
right.
Absolutely. So I think it's important that we still continue to build those relationships and have conversations with people, even if we're not seeing it on the headlines right now.
Absolutely.
Just so that we can continue to grow and just become a better community and country, really.
Absolutely. And I do have to ask a question just on that topic as well, just because you had mentioned that you had gotten mostly black student body and the officers together in one room. I just want to know, was there at any point in time that you guys had conversations with any of like the white students or any of the other students as well?
So with that event, we got a mixture of students to come out. And we actually teamed up with some of the professors to encourage their students to come as well. But beyond that, so that actually sparked like a slew of other events that we did. And we followed up around the time that President Trump, I can't remember if he had already been elected or I think he had already been elected and he was in office. We actually had another panel where I invited black and white students to speak. And we talked about some of the things that were happening at the time and like how it feels and just controversial things that were being said and things like that. And so there was always opportunity for other students to speak as well. But I think it started out just with like the police brutality and kind of wanting to know what the black students wanted to,
absolutely,
how they were feeling.
Absolutely. And I definitely understand that, just because, again, growing up in a black family, then growing up in a white family, I got the best of both worlds. I got an understanding of both cultures and whatnot. But even further down the road, of course, when all these events were happening, I'm going back to my family and I'm discussing it, and I want them to know exactly how I feel, because how I feel is completely different than they feel. Because when these events happen, you feel attacked. If you're black, you feel like you're being attacked. Now, on the other end, as far as like anyone that's not black and they're not talking about it, I know that a lot of our friends felt like if they're not talking about it, then they're the issue. And I'm like, well, no, that's not how it works there. It's on us to also to bring up these conversations and allow them to give them their opinion, because I know that once they start to give their opinion, and if it wasn't asked from by one of us or anything, then all of a sudden, then they're like, well, why are you even talking about this? You have no right to talk about this. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so it's such a mixture of different feelings and different like anger and just too many emotions and whatnot. And I finally was able to realize it when my father-in-law, he had sat me down, and not even sat down. We were sitting down as me, my father-in-law, and my wife. And we sat down, and he just comes out. He's like, listen, I have to ask a question, and I don't want you to feel offended when I ask this question, but I really want to know. And I'm like, gosh, what does this have to do with? And he's like, can you tell me like your side and your opinion on everything that's going on? Because I want to understand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, shame on me for not even just sitting you down and asking you the exact same question. Yeah. Because it's on us to understand each other. That's how we become better humans. Yeah. And that's how we become, that's how we take away from this fighting and the blame and it's on you, it's on you, it's on you, it's on us, it's on all of us, So that's why it was a long description on why I asked that question, but it's important. It's just very important for us to have these conversations with everyone. So
I agree.
Still,
for sure,
absolutely.
So with you doing diversity, equity, and inclusion here at Augustana University, and kind of the background that you had with going to school down in Tennessee, what is the difference, or is there a difference that you see when it comes to the topic of diversity, equity, inclusion in a place like Tennessee and then a place like Sioux Falls? I know it's a big question.
Yeah.
It's hard because I feel like in a lot of ways it's very similar, actually. I will say there are differences because Southern culture is obviously different than Midwestern culture, which I will say Southern. I don't know. Coming to the Midwest has made me feel like when people say Southern hospitality is a real thing, like they talk about how nice Southerners are, I'm like, yeah, they were right. But
right.
But
Seriously.
In regards to like diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think there are a lot of similarities, especially when I compare like my college experience to the experience of the college students at Augustana. I feel like, I don't know, I just think that there is a lack of understanding all across the board when it comes to diversity. Sure. I think because diversity has become such this buzzword that people they get caught up more so on, oh, we have people of color in this space, we have people from this identity in this space, but the part of actually like making those people feel welcome, making them feel included is always lost upon people. And I felt the same way as a student at my undergrad. I loved that place for the opportunities that it gave me, but there were a lot of times where I was like, you have me here, but I don't feel like you want me here, and I don't feel appreciated by you. And I think that a lot of times, again, institutions will do all they can to bring people into a space, but they won't necessarily make them feel like they should be there because they're not offering them certain resources or, you know, things that people need to thrive in that space.
Right. Yeah. I know that was a tough question too, kind of putting you on the spot like that. So apologize about that, but
like you're trying to get me fired.
No. The reason I asked though is just because of like kind of what you said. It is just different cultures. You know, down south is a different culture than it is here in South Dakota, and I mean even in South Dakota you're going to get different cultures depending on where you're at. Same with Tennessee. So lack, I guess you could say, of diversity at a school like Augustana, was it similar to the school that you went to?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So we had like 3,000 students, if I'm not mistaken. I think they might have said 5,000, but that might have also been, we had a couple satellite campuses, so they might have also been including that. But when it comes to the racial makeup, I think we might have had more Black students than Augustana, but it still was slim to none compared to the overall number of white students on campus. Okay. Yeah.
Is that something that they're wanting to bring in more diversity that you're aware of? Or like, can you talk about? Tell us about what you do with Augustana and kind of that role and kind of the purpose of it, I guess.
Absolutely. So I am the Assistant Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Augustana. I work with Willette Capers, who is our Assistant Vice Provost of DE&I. Prior to me, she was like a one-woman band. She was doing everything by herself, which I'm barely making it a lot of times, so I don't know how she did that. So kudos to her. But we basically work together to try to bring more diversity to Augustana. She works with the faculty, staff, and administrators. She works on the strategic plan and really just to try to bring more institutional change. I work more with the students, so I do a lot of recruiting. I also run the Journey Scholars Program, which is a program for domestic students of color. It is a scholarship program where we finance any unmet need the students have, but we also just try to give them a sense of community on the campus and also try to provide them with leadership skills to kind of just help them grow. Yeah. I'm also over the affinity groups, and so that is Black Student Union, African Student Union, Asian Student Organization, La Union Hispania, Gender and Sexuality Alliance, Native American Student Association, and Augustana International Club. Wow. And I basically just kind of oversee them and kind of give them any support that they need. I plan programs and events for the university. We also have a diversity advocate certification course that Willette crafted. that basically teaches people about different areas of diversity and how to be better advocates. And I teach the intersectionality part of it, which basically brings all of our identities together and kind of show how we can be discriminated against, but also how we can support people with varying identities.
Yeah.
I do a lot of things.
Yeah,
like
no joke.
the whole list.
List of things that she's running through.
I'm sure I'm forgetting something. I also have we were talking about earlier, but it's not really a podcast. It's a vlog. It's a food vlog. Cooking Across Cultures on the Road, where we go to different cultural restaurants in Sioux Falls and learn about the culture, learn about, what inspired them to open the restaurant, and we get to eat some good food, which I love to do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we do a lot of stuff.
That's awesome. What was that transition like as you started to actually engage with students once you got to Sioux Falls?
It was easy. I love students. Like I don't feel like an old lady myself, and so I don't feel like it's easy to I don't feel like it's hard to talk to students. I think my biggest struggle and what I think has been a lot of me trying to overcome imposter syndrome is the being in front of my colleagues and other people and having to teach. I hate teaching. I don't like teaching at all. I am more of an intimate conversation person. I don't like standing in front of people being the center of attention. So I think that part of it is what has been the hardest. But the students are probably the easiest. They literally make my day when I see them and I get to talk to them and interact with them. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's good. And I just want to ask more on the Journey Scholar program there, just because we had the opportunity to sit in on one of the first meetings with Augustana this year. And when I came in there and I saw all these students come in, I'm just like, wow. I'm like, why doesn't University of South Dakota, why didn't they have something like this, And I'm sure there's plenty of universities that possibly do have it, or they just don't have, or they do have it and they don't talk enough about it, or they just don't have it. So I just want to know more about the Journey Scholar program that you guys provide.
Yeah, I honestly cannot take all the credit. Willette actually started the program, I think 5 years ago. And I believe she said when she started it, she had no idea what she was doing. She just knew she had a group of students and she needed to do something with them. Yeah. And I think the following year she ended up, first of all, I think the first year there was somewhere between maybe 20 something students, if that many. I think it might have been 13 or something like that. I can't remember the exact number. But every year she's kind of just made it better and kind of made it more specific to who the group catered to. I think the first group, she said everybody was in there, white, black, whatever. It didn't matter. Everybody was in there. Right. Then I think she said the second year she decided to cater it to students of color. And then every year she's kind of just made it better. And then when I came in, I kind of helped her kind of figure out what type of programming to do and things like that. And so it's just really grown. This year we have 48 students, which is the biggest number we've ever had. And they're trying to get to 60, and I'm just oh man, I'm excited, but I'm also that is a lot of people. But
I don't think you guys are gonna have an issue getting to that number.
I don't either.
I really don't. I even us just being there, I felt so welcomed and so involved, and I guarantee you that the kids that were there, they felt the same exact thing, and that's what people look for, especially going into college. And these are freshmen, and freshmen, sophomores and whatnot, and they're vulnerable at that time. They don't know exactly what they want to do in college quite yet. Some of them don't even know if they truly want to be at college, It's just something that they heard that's something you're supposed to do after high school. So they're figuring themselves out, and you guys are helping them combine with each other to truly figure themselves out, which I think is great. So,
and at the same time, connect them to people in the community.
Absolutely.
A lot of them may not even be from Sioux Falls or even from this area. So to have people come in, CEOs of big companies were there to be support for these students. So I think it's really cool just to kind of bridge that gap for people and, can continue to promote that DE&I and all that. Cause it was really cool. I felt honored being there talking, cause I'm almost that imposter syndrome. It's yeah, we here. We here too. You see us.
And I think that's important, because I feel a lot of things seem impossible until you see somebody like yourself that's doing it. And I think that was important for me when it came to kind of putting things together in the program, is making sure that they know there are other students on this campus that are doing the same things that y'all might want to do. There are people in the community who look like you that are doing the things that you want to do, and just kind of giving them that sense of hope.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I have to ask, and this is just a thought I'm thinking of now. When you were deciding who to bring to that or invite, why did you decide to invite us?
I honestly was just thinking about all of the people that I had met in the community that I felt like were doing something positive. I think a lot of times when people think success, they think people in suits. They think like all of these things that really can be success, but that's not success, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
They kind of put a monetary value behind it.
And I think, like, if you're, with what you're doing with your podcast, you're reaching people, you're talking to people, like, you're giving a voice and a platform to people who may not always necessarily have that as people of color. And so I just kind of wanted them to see that there are different ways that you can use your voice. There are different ways that you can, you know, be impactful in the community. And I just wanted them to be introduced to more than just people in nice suits.
Yeah. Right. No, it was great. It was really great.
Our next question that I do have for you before we kind of get into our next part of our episode here is just going to be more of what you say you would say your day-to-day activities are, you know, kind of what exactly in Augustana, because most people are going to listen to this and they're like D&I, you know, what is that? Of course, then they're going to Google it, figure out what it is, and they're going to try and figure out exactly what your role is on there. So I just want to know what exactly is your day-to-day activities there.
Take us through a day of your life.
That's hard because no day is the same. And I think that's what I love about my job so much. Like some days I'm at my desk all day typing emails. Some days I'm like out in the community. Just last week, I was in Minnesota for pretty much the whole week. We went to a college fair. It was the Minnesota Association Counselors of Color. So the schools that we went to had high diversity rates. They had a diverse number of students. And so that whole week we were bouncing around Minnesota, going to different schools, telling them about Augustana, trying to get them to come there. I do a lot of planning for the events and things that I do. Willette and I get to go to a lot of conferences.
Yeah.
This December, I'm actually going to Amsterdam, London, and Paris. I'm so excited. I am leading a study abroad course in January of 2025 with another professor, Dr. Spencer Sorelli. And our course, I always forget the name. It's like Black Joy, Thriving in Resistance and something. I can't remember. But the premise behind the course is that a lot of times when you think about like Black culture, you think about the struggle and you think about, you know, all the things that Black people have gone through, but you rarely talk about the success or the accomplishments. And so we want to highlight Black food, Black hair, Black fashion, Black spirituality, just different aspects of Blackness, and not just from an American standpoint, but from various, like for instance, Amsterdam has a high like Caribbean and African population, and so we want to highlight different aspects of Blackness.
That's awesome.
Okay. Very nice.
And so I'm going in December to kind of plan out what that looks like, and so I'm excited. So yeah, none of my days are the same.
That's crazy.
Where do you find the time for yourself? I mean, it seems like you're just you're always running around doing something, you know?
Yeah, that's a good question.
She said, I still have to figure that out.
When I shower,
No, really, but it just depends. I think some days I do get to the point to where I'm like, okay, I can't. And I think learning how to say no has been the best thing for me, because it used to be to the point to where I was just like, yes to everything. And it's not even just work related. Like Willette and I also, we have a lot of Journey scholars that are on the football team and acro tumbling and all these other sports. And so we also go to support them. And so we're working all the time. And I think, like I said, learning how, to listen to my body and learning to be like, all right, we did a lot this week. Maybe we should just chill on the couch today.
Right.
And Willette has been very great about allowing me to kind of like take days off, or if I spend until 10 p.m. working this day, then maybe I don't have to come in as early the next day. And so there's a balance there, and that's been really great too.
That's good.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah, I'm sure just working in education, those are long years. And, you know, if you've never worked in a school or anything like that, them breaks that you get, I'm sure you're looking forward to those because it's coming up, right?
Yes. You said something about Thanksgiving and relaxing, and I'm just like, yes. Most times I'm thinking about the food, but this year I'm thinking about the relaxation.
Will you get to go home? Do you get to go home very often?
I'm choosing not to go home this time around, only because, I was supposed to, but my plans fell through. But I think my sister is coming to visit me soon, or my mom, somebody.
Okay.
Very nice.
Have they been to South Dakota?
My mom has. She's been twice. My sister hasn't yet.
What does your mom think?
She likes it.
Does she?
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only for the little time that she's here. And then she's like, I'm going back.
Yeah, and she hasn't come when it's cold. She only comes when it's hot.
Yeah.
So.
I don't blame her.
Right.
I don't blame her for that.
Seriously.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I've got one last question for you here, a little bit of a loaded question, but you work with quite a few students, and I'm assuming that you know, getting to know them, you learn their background and you learn what their version of poverty is, you know, and how they handle it. What I want to ask for you is each individual that comes on, they have their own understanding of poverty and what it takes to overstep that. So what I want to know is when you hear overstepping poverty, what does that mean to you?
Overstepping poverty to me is just like day-to-day steps that you take to make sure that you aren't in that place that you came from, like we talked about earlier. When I think about overstepping poverty, I think about all of the different things that I have had to learn in regards to money and in regards to just staying afloat, trying not to repeat some of the patterns that I have seen others do, and just really trying to make sure that I stay in a good place. When I think overstepping poverty, I think this is like a day-to-day. Like every day I am running away from where I could be if I don't, make a conscious effort to, take the right steps or make the right moves.
I love that.
I really like that.
That is, yeah.
My opinion, that's one of the best examples, I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, thank you.
Well, because it is, like, and it really hit me when you were like, those day-to-day steps that you take to not be where you could be. I think that's big because it's easy to just let things slip, especially when things aren't going your way and you just kind of fall into a rut.
Yeah.
It's hard a lot of times for people to get out of those ruts. So it's like small steps every single day to get to where you want to be. I think
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
So let's move on to our next part of our episode here. This is what we call as roundtable. Many people, when they're sitting in that seat and we're just firing questions at them, I know that they're like, when do I get to ask? When do I get to ask? So now's your chance to ask us some questions as well. So
yeah. So I just want to know first a little bit more about you all. Like, I know I've met y'all in the community and things like that, but I want to know like who you are, where you come from, and we'll start there before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm actually born in Des Moines, Iowa. I moved here as a young kid. I was in the foster care system. I was in the foster care system actually with my sister. So everywhere that she went initially, as far as in the foster care system, I was with her. And then finally there was a point in time that we were separated, and probably like one of the most traumatic parts of my life because that was my only family at the time. And then eventually I was adopted, and I came to this family, and guess what? My sister was adopted there too. Oh. And so when we were adopted there, we were adopted into a family of brothers and sisters. And at that time, I had some half brothers and sisters who were also in the foster care system. And what do you know? They were adopted by the sister part of the family. So my brother and sister became my cousin at the time. So a little bit of background of how exactly I got to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And just, I guess, more on just myself. In sales, love sales, kind of grew up into always talking with people, always trying to be the life of the party or the class clown and whatnot. That was kind of my motto and whatnot. But then I kind of figured out how to turn that into more of a positive way and interacting with people. And that's how we became, and we made this podcast here. So instead of sitting and, making jokes and whatnot, or not doing what I can to help the community, we figured out a good way how we can truly help to inspire people within our community. And that's what Overstepping Poverty is about. And so this is how we pretty much got here today with Zacchaeus and I. I met him in college, and ever since then, we've been kind of hip by hip, you know, and we've discussed plenty of business ideas. This was more of a hobby that turned into a business that also turned into, okay, well, I don't want it to all be about the money side of things. I want it to be about more of the people that we have on and whatnot. So that's how we figure out how we can give back to the community. And there's other branches of our business that we can, of course, I mean, because everyone has to eat still, you know. Yeah. So, but yeah, now we're here.
Yeah, it's true. My turn. Thanks, Quan.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'm actually from Sioux Falls. I was born in Sioux Falls. My family moved to Las Vegas, Nevada in like 2003, 2004. So I have 2 siblings. Obviously, you know my brother. He's a Journey Scholar. Yeah. But yeah, so I grew up between here and Las Vegas. Would always come back and forth in the summers. And then in 2009, 2010, the market crashed and both of my parents got laid off. The house that we were renting out of, landlord wasn't paying the mortgage, so the home got foreclosed. All bad. And we ended up moving back here to Sioux Falls. And so I've been here ever since. That was like 2010. So I was gone for about 8-9 years. And yeah, went to school at O'Gorman for my junior and senior year. That was a crazy experience going from, you know, a public school in Las Vegas to a private Catholic school here in Sioux Falls. The biggest culture shock I ever experienced in my life. I remember walking into my first class. It was chemistry. The floors are like that white tile with all the science tables. Everybody wearing polo khakis and the same color shoes. I'm like, what the hell did I decide to do? So that was its own experience. That was an interesting experience as well. I value that time. And from there, went to USD, met DeQuan, skipped a lot of class with DeQuan, not going to lie. But, you know, that we, like he said, we were always together. We were always doing things together. We were always, I don't know, like brothers. And so, yeah, graduated, started working with at-risk youth at what's called Summit Oaks with DeQuan, actually. Mm-hmm. And that was kids, you know, from 11 to 18 that were, whether, you know, maybe they were in the system already or parents placed them there, but they were dealing with, you know, suicidal thought, just a lot of challenges. Yeah. And they lived there. So we were with them, you know, a lot. And that was a crazy experience as well. We actually both decided to leave that place, and we actually both went to Wells Fargo together. We worked at Wells Fargo. Mm-hmm. Kind of crazy. But yeah, so that's kind of how I grew up. I got sick of working in the school district. I wasn't really making anything, and it was around the time, I think it was the George Floyd time, mm-hmm. When that was happening. I'm working in the school district. I'm making like $1,600 a month. I ain't making nothing. And they're paying me once a month. And I'm like, you know, my wife and I think about building a family. Like, I can't do this on $1,600 a month. And so the George Floyd thing was going on, and we had those marches, you know, so many had happened that we kind of talked about. And it was like, we got, like, what else can I do? And it sounds silly, but my mind was like, well, we need to start teaching our people about, like, life insurance. And if they're going to be, unfortunately, killing us or whatever, the hope is that, you know, at least there's something to help the family that we're leaving behind or the generation you're leaving behind. So that was kind of my idea. Yeah. Got into working with life insurance and realized there's really nobody that's serving the black or brown community at all when it comes to those things. And it just kind of all started to build from there. Got into doing mortgage, and I don't know, got in front of a camera, and we're finally here, which is crazy. But yeah, I'm a big family person. I coach football. I love to be with my family, and I just want to see a better community really with all of this. I want to connect people more. I feel like there's so much negativity that we see everywhere, you know, and I don't even really watch the news anymore because I just can't, you know, and it's like, we can push this type of stuff, you know, and like real conversations with real people. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking. Mm-hmm. It's just getting a perspective of like, oh, Tyra I watched the episode on Tyra. She's at Augustana and she's doing all these things. That's so cool. And then maybe they'll be like, hey, I've seen you before. And it just, builds connections with people. So, yeah, long answer for both of us.
No, you're good. So why the name Overstepping Poverty? Like, what about what you're doing kind of like fits under that?
Absolutely. So it's quite simple, actually, the way that it was thought out. And that's because in any situation, when someone hears poverty, the first thing that they think of is like broke. You don't have any money. You live in a broken down neighborhood, house, whatever, usually that's like the first thing they think of is poverty. Well, in my mindset, I think poverty goes way beyond that. In our mindset, truthfully, it goes far beyond that. And what it entails is it's more of how's your mindset, how's your day-to-day living? What are you doing to make your situation better? And not only your situation, what are you doing to make whoever's following behind you better for them as well? How's your physical and mental health? It's all these things. You can be living in poverty and not even know it. There's people who have all the money in the world, but I promise you that they probably have poverty mindset as well, because the only thing that they're thinking about is how am I going to get the next dollar, and that's a poverty mindset in my mind, and the nice thing about it is poverty. I truly think that it's opinionated to each and every individual. So that's why every single person we have on here, we ask them, what does overstepping poverty mean to you? Because it's more personalized to you, because how you think of what poverty is and what I think of poverty is, it can be completely different. But I know that when you give that answer, someone else who's listening or watching this, they're going to be like, wow, you know what? Poverty means the exact same thing to me. And I see what you're doing and how you're staying afloat and how you're bettering yourself and how you're bettering your community. I could do those exact same things, And so that's kind of how Overstepping Poverty was built on there. How are you taking the next step in in poverty, Overstepping Poverty?
Yeah. And I hated the name, to be honest, when Daquan first said it. And I'm like, no, I don't want the name or the word poverty attached to our business. I mean, it's like, I just didn't like it. And I went home and he was like, dude, no, like, think about it. And I was like, okay. I started to think about it. And somebody I listened to a lot, especially when I was like first getting into like self-development, was Bob Proctor. And I don't know if you know who that is, but I suggest you check him out. He's an old white man on YouTube, and he has like gold information. Like, and it's all about how it's all in your mind, right? So like someone will say to him like, I'm broke or I'm poor. He's like, you're not broke, you're rich, you're just short of money. And it's like the same aspect of being resourceful. It's like, it doesn't matter what situation you're in. You might not even know how bad your situation is. All you know is you need to move forward, right? And I think a lot of times what I see when I talk with people or hear people talking about like why they haven't been able to do the things that they want to do and get to the places that they want to get, a lot of times it's always pointed outwards on like what's holding them back, instead of like looking at themselves and understanding that, our lives are the way they are. A lot of times, especially as you're growing up as an adult, your life is the way you are, or it is because of the things that you're doing, the things that you're not doing. When we talk about mental health and we talk about lifting as we climb, bringing the people up with us, like as we grow, we want to bring people with us. And I think it's easy to look at like Overstepping Poverty, the name, and think of one thing or whatever, but I think it's so much bigger. Like it's a huge picture to where like the things that we're doing or maybe we're talking about right now, we might not even know who it's going to help or how it's going to help somebody, but maybe it will help them take that step and just move forward. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. So it's subjective to everybody, but that's really kind of where it comes from for me and for Daquan, I would say.
It's interesting you say that, because I've been struggling to kind of instill that in my students. I'm finding that a lot of, and I don't know if it's a generational thing or what, but a lot of the students I encounter have this like sit around and wait mindset, where it's like they're thinking that things are going to come to them, or it's like, oh, well, I can't because of this. And it's like, okay, but aside from that, like, what can you do to change this thing? And it's like, it's not clicking for them. And I don't know what to say to kind of push them forward.
Right.
All I can think about is how I was when I was younger, and I never thought that I would turn into the back in my day type of person. But I don't know. I don't know if like the drive that I experienced, especially like I said when I was in college, just in life in general, that it's like I don't have this, but I do have this, and I can use that. I don't know if that's like something that is innate. Yeah. Can it be taught? Like, and if it can be, like, how do you teach that to somebody? You know?
You know, and that's something that can be taught. But at the end of the day, if a person does not want to do something, they're not going to do it. You can't make them do anything. So you can give anyone all the information in the world, but at the end of the day, how they utilize it is completely up to them. But one thing that you'll see is as you continue to teach and you continue to preach, how to do better for themselves, it may not click right away, but then all of a sudden 3 years down the road, you'll see them and they're like, Tyra, you remember that one time that you told me this? You know what I'm saying? I'm serious. Like, you remember that one time you said this, and I know I probably sat there and you probably looked at me like, what are you gonna do? But listen, like it finally resonated, and everything that you said, it helped me and it gave me the push, and it all makes sense now. But that's what it is. It takes time for them to really click, and sometimes what happens is it has to be a negative situation. Because most of these people are waiting for these things to come to them. Well, they're going to surely realize that if you want something in life, you have to go out and get it, period. And if you continue to wait and nothing's going to come, then all of a sudden you're going to have that poor me attitude. And then when you're really at your low, that's when truly that inner grit, that no matter what, that dog that I'm going to fight no matter what. Like that's when that comes out, and it brings out an entirely different person. And then you become Daquan Brooks. Seriously. Seriously. I'm just saying. That's how it went. I just told my whole story.
I don't even got anything to say after that. I'm playing. I do think that talking about those students, I think that is what it takes, though. I think it is for them to like hit a point where like, oh, it's not gonna happen. Like they actually got to hit that moment. And I think that's something like from your perspective now, you're able to look at it and you're like, I tried to tell you, type of thing. And you'll have those moments, but we didn't listen either. I know at least I didn't, because I sure would have been going to class like I said I was going to.
Like I said, I mean, I had a breaking point where I was just like, that's it. Like either I'm going to do something with my life, otherwise I'm just going to continue to sulk and keep living in the oh, I went through this, and this happened to me. Well, guess what? I can continue to live in that. That's not going to do anything for me, period. It's not going to move me forward. It's me. It's all me. You're your biggest enemy. You're your biggest roadblock. So for those of that are listening, though it sounded like a joke, I'm just telling you, you're going to have your moment eventually where it's like, it's a wake-up call, and you'll understand. You'll understand exactly what we're talking about.
That's real.
Do you have any other questions for us?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Well, then here's what we're going to do here. We're going to move into the last part of our episode here, where we ask you to give our viewers and listeners 5 tips, tricks, and hacks in overstepping poverty.
Okay. Well, I put them in my phone because I was trying to think of them. Okay. So the first one I have is save. I put save, and then the letters keep getting capitalized every time. But if I knew how expensive the world would be, I probably would have started saving when I was 2. Only because, like I said, everything is so expensive. And I think a lot of times we have this mindset of oh, I can spend this, I'll make the money back. But then once the money is gone, I know there have been a couple times I was like, dang, if I would have kept that money that so-and-so gave me, or if I would have kept this or kept that, I would have this much right now. So I would say 1 would be save. 2, educate yourself about budgeting, investing, stocks, all of that. I didn't learn about all of that stuff until I got to grad school. I went to a conference, and they were teaching about money skills and credit cards and things like that. When I was in high school, we did a 6-week course over money and things like that, but nobody's thinking about that type of stuff in high school. And then for 6 weeks, that's not enough time to really instill it in you. So I would say if you can educate yourself on budgeting, investing, all of that stuff, it will help you and your money will go so much further.
Yeah.
Spend wisely. And I said you don't need a new outfit for every event. I'm just speaking to myself. Talking about overstepping poverty each and every day, I have to tell myself I don't need a new outfit for every event. You can mix and match. DIY is also my best friend. Like, you like to look nice, but a lot of times things are expensive, especially if you're like me, you like to get your lashes done, your nails done. DIY is cool sometimes.
Yeah.
Number 4, be resourceful. Use what you have to get to where you want to go. Networking is huge. Knowing the right people can get you a lot further sometimes than any money will. Skills and talents, use your skills to your advantage. There's always opportunities out there. There are programs that people offer that will pay for you to do things. There are grants. Google it. I'm sure there's something out there for you. And then the last one is take risks. And I say that because a lot of times people ask me, like y'all did, like how I got to South Dakota. And I remember in that time, I was, like I said, working as an RA, so I didn't have to pay bills. I didn't have to worry about my food or anything like that. And taking this job meant that I would have had to find my own apartment. I would have started having to pay bills and things like that. And in the back of my mind, the whole time I was like, if I take this leap to do the thing that it is that I really want to do, am I going to be able to sustain myself? Like, I've never had these responsibilities before. And again, I told y'all I was down to 2 jobs. The other job would have been me working in housing in the city of my dreams, but I would have been working in housing, which is not what I wanted to be doing with my life. Right. And so I took the leap and it worked out, thankfully. But I say, like, if I would have gone with what was safest, yes, I would have been living in the city of my dreams. Yes, my living would have been paid for, but I would have been miserable because I wouldn't be doing the thing that I'm most passionate about, which is diversity work. So take risks. You never know where it'll take you.
Absolutely.
Those are great.
Those are.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great to have you. It's always great to be able to collaborate with you, and I'm sure there's more down the road for us.
Yeah.
So,
there absolutely is. And if you go to Augustana and you see Tyra, and you've heard this episode here, definitely ask about all the things that she's doing to help her community, and maybe even see how you can be involved, especially when it comes to DE&I, whether it's the Journey Scholar Program or the countless other things that she is involved in. Just make sure you have some time so she can share with you all that. But yes, no, we greatly appreciate you coming on to our podcast here. And we definitely see many other events and things that we can also combine with each other with to ensure that the community is bettering themselves. So
yeah, thank y'all so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, we'll see you guys next week on Overstepping Poverty. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Overstepping Poverty. We hope you found this week's discussion informative and thought-provoking. We know that tackling poverty is a complex issue, but by working together and understanding the root causes, we can make progress towards creating a more equitable society. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our show. Until next time, let's take the next steps in Overstepping Poverty.